That's all right.
All right. Leon, thank you very much for being here.
Okay, no, and Jeff. So thank you very much for coming along. How are we going? And welcome to anyone who is listening on streaming. We don't know who's there, so hello out there. Actually, that was my earliest sign of COVID. I had to give a lecture before they did it, and I walked into a lecture and there was no one in the lecture theatre and recorded, and that was the weirdest thing. I never started giving a lecture to a completely empty room. Yeah, there were people watching, but it was maybe, yeah, in fact, they weren't watching live, but it's recorded, so people look at it later, so it's definitely. So this is something that I'm happy to talk about. Jewish literature between the Bible and the Mishnah. And in a moment, it actually follows on quite nicely from what we said before. For those who don't know us, Jeff and I have been talking about texts for over 20 years. We realized when we've been running sessions at Kedem for 6 years. I went and had a look. No, it's been longer. Our first session was on Josephus, hero or villain, and that was in 2019. I actually found the slides when I was preparing for the talk. So that was actually there. So, and Jeff and I come from completely different places. Jeff is the real expert. He's a classics lecturer in all of the view, and I'm just an informed amateur. But our dynamic has been fun, and we've been doing a range of sessions within Kedem. And really, our whole style is to inform. So again, there's no ideology here. We're just finding out about things that we know briefly. So what's tonight's session? So Jewish life between the destruction of the temples. So for the first temple was destroyed in 586, then was 450, and then you had the second temple destroyed around 70. And I was struck in an odd way how well this talk followed from the talks that we had. 7 people saying, how do you contemporize Jewish life? And my question is, how did people contemporize Jewish life 2,000 years ago? They must have had the same struggle of what we actually did, and what do we know about it? And really, all we know is what got preserved. The best preservation is Josephus. And again, it's interesting. But as well as Josephus, there are all of these books that people wrote over the 400 years from when Ezra and Nehemiah, and when the canon really got sealed off from the Tanakh as we know it, to post the other one, what was happening in that period. And there's a lot I realized about Jewish life that I wasn't told at my Mount Scopus education. The view that we had was there was the orthodoxy, everyone followed Torah, and that was all. There was a very narrow view, and I'm sure that's far from the truth. There were Jews in communities all through the old world. They followed the Greeks and the Romans all across the place. But how do we know? And I think really this session is sharing a little bit of some of the sources. Now, we've only got half an hour or so we're not going to go in depth. But what I wanted to do is to talk and, in a way, give my pointer to where I'll do continuing sessions with Kedem. So this is a book that Jeff gave me, which was nice, Jewish literature between the Bible and the Mishnah. And that was the kind of thing. There was Jewish literature, and there's a lot. And we'll point out some of those writings. And this is actually very well structured. It's got all of the chapters of the various periods where people wrote. So here is the various chapters of the Nikolsburg book. We should actually do how many people have heard of the books and how many people have read the books. If you look at, there's an awful lot of books. Tovit, I haven't read that. 1 Enoch. The Psalms of Solomon. the various testaments of all of the forefathers. Lots of people were writing, and what constitutes that particular set of knowledge. And you can see that some of them were on various stages. So the first period that they described was the period after, when the Jews were dispersed to Babylon and the people that came back. So the book of Daniel, who knows exactly when it was written, but it's, of that period of time. People told tales of that period. There was a Palestine post-Alexander the Great and people trying to adopt philosophy into their writing. Ben Sira is an interesting book. Jubilees, which I haven't read, but we'll have a page of Jubilees to look at in a moment, which is an interesting book. When Israel was in Egypt, there was a big Jewish community formed in Alexandria and settlements in Egypt. And there was a lot of writing for those sessions. And Jeff and I are going to run a session on the letter of Aristeas, letter to Aristeas, which is actually the source of how did the Septuagint come about? How do we know what actually happened? And again, it got repeated as a story in the Talmud of having various scholars who miraculously had the exact version of the writing in Greek. But I think there's a more detailed version of that in the letter to Aristeas, and there's the Greek source of how the Bible got translated into Greek as source, which is of interest. And during the Roman and Herod, there was writing from all of those periods, and interesting books, and we'll say a little bit more about them. Do you want to make comment about this, Jeff, while I'm standing?
Leon, I just think you might put dates on Bible to Mishnah, just so everybody's clear about the period we're really talking about here.
I should have put it on the slide. So I had 450 BCE is probably the period when the Bible was collected, when Ezra and Nehemiah came back and re-established. That's the belief when the canon got put together. And the Mishnah was codified at 200 CE, so there was writing. So we're looking at a period of almost 600 years of writing. So 200 to 200. Wasn't some of the Greek writing? Oh, that was from later. Yeah. Okay. So 200 to 2. Yep. Yeah. Well, that's a good question, Jeff. How about in Greek?
Thank you, Leon. I'm not sure I can answer that question. Judith was the one that would come to mind. But women are quite prominent in these texts. So even in the letter of Aristeas, we should talk about that next week, Leon, the women in Aristeas. The Psalms of Solomon, certainly women in the Maccabees. So the mother of the martyrs, herself martyred, prominent in the text. So that's 2 Maccabees and so on. So yes, there's a lot there.
So I'm not sure. Yeah. Esther was probably a little bit earlier, I think, maybe. Yeah. Ruth was, I think, probably earlier. But okay, I'll take those on notice. I probably should. Yeah. The thing which I said, again, we don't have time, but my friend or my resource is Safaria. That is a fantastic resource that's been built up. If you don't know it, and I even used it for source from the talks, but even just here are all of the books that are the copy of text in Safaria. Ben Sirah, Jubilees, Judith, Tobit, Letter of Aristeas, Megillat Antiochus. So that's a Syrian Greek text, I guess. Prayer of Manasseh, Psalm 151. So there's 150 psalms. So someone wrote an additional psalm in the style. Maccabees 1 and 2. Book of Susanna. There's one. A book of Susanna. There's another woman. The Testaments of the 12 Patriarchs, which is final speeches of the 12 sons of Jacob, that people liked reimagining history over the period of time, and The Wisdom of Solomon, which is also an interesting book. So lots and lots of text to read of, and that I never heard of. And if you really, and the comment that I said before, if you're trying to contemporize Jewish life now, if you go back 2,000 years ago, that's what people were doing. They were having their expression in these books, as well as that with an awful lot of writing from Philo of Alexandria, who I also didn't learn about at school, but in Safaria there are about 20 documents that he produced, which are great. And as I said, Josephus is the biggest source, and the text of Josephus is in Safaria. Jeff is constantly finding things in Josephus of various sources. So maybe you can talk to those. We say we've got the text in Safaria. What do they actually really look like? So maybe you can say.
Thanks, Leon. We glossed over, didn't we, up till this point, what language these texts are in? So we really wanted to focus on that because it's part of the particular interest of how the Judaism of this period, 200 to 200, is discovering itself. It's discovering itself in its own language, in exactly the same way that we did tonight when we spoke English and we reflected on, with a smattering of Hebrew, too much for me, but lots of contemporary reflection, they did the same. And so I wanted to mention, that's that one? That's Latin. Yeah, and that's that, and we chose that especially because we wanted to talk a little bit about Michael Stone tonight. So Professor Michael Stone, who wrote this commentary on 4th Ezra, which has that face page in it, we'll talk about later. He is the expert on 4th Ezra and on this period. I'll say a little bit about Michael. He was, until fairly recently, Professor of Armenian Studies at the Hebrew University. He studied at Melbourne University and then went to Harvard and did his doctorate. I thought I'd bring my scarf, partly because we're talking a little bit about Michael, and partly because we're all protesting Harvard whenever we get a chance. So I did well to remember my scarf, but I forgot any headgear. My wife is away for the weekend, and she normally reminds me what I need to take. So Michael's a great character, and why he is to be acknowledged particularly was because wherever he went, he would make a scholarly contribution to this period, and he would try and explore and expose all of the Jewish thinking that was going on that produced these documents. And the interesting thing about 4th Ezra is that it is thoroughgoingly a Jewish document. It's not it doesn't seem to have, in any of the evidence we've got, a Christian reworking. It was very common for these texts to be reworked, but 4th Ezra was not.
Why is it called 4th Ezra? I'm happy to do that. So I think people's naming, so there's Ezra and Nehemiah. So in some of the canons, Nehemiah is Ezra 2. And there was Ezra, there's a third book of Ezra. And I think there was a Christian edition of 2 sentences at the beginning and a few sentences at the end. And people realized it was written separately. So that was 3 Ezra, and 4 Ezra was
Yeah, yeah.
And when you say, so they're all 4 completely separate people.
So Ezra and Nehemiah, I guess tradition-wise, they were written separately.
But then how you break up those books that belong to Ezra's time is difficult to work out. So most people like to call this 4th Ezra and to separate it out so that people don't say, we don't know what it is. We can't work out how it relates to anything else. Demarcate it and then study it. And that's what Michael Stone did. So Michael Stone was Professor of Armenian Studies. But we can start with the Latin, which is the best known text of 4th Ezra. Everybody's confident that 4th Ezra was written in Hebrew. But we don't have it. We have 1 or 2 quotations which may come from the book, may not. We can't be certain because if we don't have it, we can't really identify the quotations reliably. But it was translated into Greek. So this is round about 70, probably, was translated into Greek. We haven't got the Greek. Not a squeak of it. So it's very remarkable how so many of these texts that we're talking about tonight from Leon's list, we don't really have them in a fully reliable form that reflects their origins. And this one in particular, no Hebrew and no Greek. So I made a little list. Yes, please.
When Leon said that those books that you mentioned were people who were trying to contemporize their Judaism of their time, can you give us an example of the sort of things that they were thinking about?
Well, whoever translated that Greek text into Latin was contemporizing the thought of that book. And 4th Ezra is about the destruction of Jerusalem in the 70s, or 73. And so it's quite clear that that there's a lot of contemporizing linguistically and translating these texts into languages of the diaspora is an active way of doing that.
Is that right? No, I just want to make the comment of what it is all wisdom is from the Lord, is with him forever. The sands of the seas, the drop of rain in the days of eternity, who can count them? The height of the sky, the breadth of the earth, and the depth of the abyss, who can estimate? So it was, again, documented, written at about 200 BCE of those texts. It sounds quite a bit like Kohelet. There's another version. It's quite similar. But someone was writing, who knows why he wrote, but he wrote 30 chapters in this style. The other thing which was quite notable in a lot of these books is a constant telling the story of telling the history. So all of these books are almost retelling the history. Josephus certainly did that. He felt it was his duty in the Antiquities of the Jews. That's the detailed history. The Book of Jubilees, which I think is the next one, is, it starts, when that was written. This is the history of the division of the days of the law and the testimony of the events of the years, and it puts words in the prophet's mouth. So they were trying to make sense of the stories they were given in the times of what they were saying. Does that? Yeah, yeah. We'll go. So, do you want to go? And that's part of it. So,
So that's a bit of Jubilees. So to 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 finish off, stressing the point about the multiple languages. So I've got my little list here. So there's a very good Latin text of 4th Ezra. There are some Syriac fragments translated from the Hebrew. There are 2 Arabic versions. There's an Ethiopic version. There's a Georgian version. There are 2 separate Armenian versions. And there's a Coptic version. And I think there's a reasonable argument that every one of those is Jewish. So you see the point, especially if the Latin is Jewish, because none of us think that Latin is a Jewish language. But it was. Yes, by Jews. Translated and circulated. And I think there's a reasonable argument that this happened in Jerusalem. And one of the reasons for saying so is that we much more likely have the original Hebrew of it if the Hebrew was sent everywhere and translated where it was sent. So probably these were copies in Jerusalem that were translated there. The original texts have gone missing. These end up in libraries or wherever as they're distributed around. And so, of course, Michael Stone was in his element as an Armeniologist, discovering what is, in that case, 4th century reflections on this text translated into Armenian. And his argument is twice.
Which religions are practicing Armenia, or did they?
Well, there was a major Jewish population in Armenia in this period. Yeah, and that's why you have the text, and the same in Ethiopia, which we know, but I think we don't take it on board in a way that we probably should. What's going on in this period is a profound discovery of an emerging Judaism at the turn of the era, preserved in these types of texts.
because there were big communities, and again, history is written by the dominant person, but there were much more established Jewish communities. I think that's my appreciation of where all of this comes from. This, I think, is this is a part of Jubilees. This is from Qumran, and there's an element of more of the evidence as Qumran. So Qumran wasn't just the Tanakh. There are all kinds of writings. Some of these books appear in Qumran, and I guess they're still processing fragments such as these from the text. Yeah.
Five fragments from 2 manuscripts of Jubilees. And Jubilees is there's a Syriac translation of the Hebrew, but it's not preserved, which is very unusual because the Syriac translations were very conscious. There's a Greek translation. It's not preserved either, but there's a wonderful papyrus fragment from Oxyrhynchus where someone writes to their friend and says, "Send me leptane genesin, send me the little Genesis," which people think is this document. So it gets a reference. We just haven't found any text of it. And there's a very important Latin text of it too. And it's best known in Ethiopic in 27 manuscripts dating from the 14th century. So, so the point is, the point's a simple one, but it's I think it's important to pick up on what Leon said earlier. Tonight we're reflecting on how we engage with our Judaism in our own time. we can be inspired by the way these people engaged with their Judaism in their time.
The interesting, an important point is, why was that preserved?
So who would preserve them? So it's a level, and libraries got destroyed. Alexandria, they burnt down the whole library and distributed the manuscript. It was only some that got away. So one of my great discoveries is the Rest is History podcast. And I've been struck by a description of the battle between the Romans and the Carthaginians. Carthage was a great society. When Rome won, it decided it would obliterate Carthage, destroyed every single text. We have no history of Carthage because the Romans destroyed all the text. According to the Rest is History, the only thing they didn't destroy was a book about how to do irrigation with channels, because they knew more about the agriculture and they realized they needed it. No, that was knowledge they didn't want to destroy. But any account of history or battles, they just destroyed. And why do people are still, in modern days, people blow up Buddhas and do all kinds of things. They wipe out culture. So, and I think, how did texts get discovered or preserved is really, it's not an easy, so at some level, yes. And I think one of our great sources of Jewish text is the Geniza. And also actually with Qumran, Jeff makes that point quite a lot. Were the texts that we discovered in Qumran the ones that people really wanted to preserve and they were hiding, or they the discards and someone just threw them away in a corner and they didn't know what they were, and they happened to be the ones that got saved because people didn't destroy them? So I think there is a significant accidental part of that. I don't know if you want to comment more about that.
I think we have the Hebrew Bible because it was smuggled out of Jerusalem in the last days of the war by courageous people who wanted to preserve the text, and then it was collected and re-edited, but it didn't include every Hebrew writing, and anything that was marginal, like Ben Sirah or Jubilees, they didn't keep. Or that no one risked their life to.
Okay, so I think we've reached our time, so I'm happy to hand over to. And you don't want the screen, right?
Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here. I know it's been in and out of it, but I appreciate you being here. I appreciate that everything in all the different spaces, we're offering like such different things. You get the historical thing, the textual stuff. We're about to go kind of do a little bit of a dive in text, but more about mysticism. There's socializing up above with the young adults with wine and cheese. I, for one, am annoyed that only the young adults are getting the wine and the cheese. Just putting that out there. I did, actually. That's why I was a bit late to hear to beginning. So what I want to do is we're doing something called the Revelation Within, but I don't like this setup. It's not going to work for me. So and I also don't want you to fall asleep on me. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to kind of just take your chairs, and we're going to make it into a bit of a circle. You can do concentric circles or one circle. We'll go from there. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Grab this chair. Oh, that's mine. No, that's not mine. Oh, wait, yes, it is. It's upside down. There we go. It is mine. There we go. All right. Oh, good. Okay. Thank you. So, yeah, I think we do definitely need to move in. I know if I hand out something, you're going to look at it and not listen to me, so I'm going to send it up, and then I'm going to hand it. Come closer. It's okay. Come close. I showered this morning. You're good. All right. So when I was in rabbinical school, I had a professor. His name was Rabbi Lawrence Kushner, not to be confused with Rabbi Harold Kushner, both amazing rabbis, both amazing writers, but totally different human beings, and they wrote about different things as well. And Rabbi Lawrence Kushner taught a class to us on the Parsha, basically. And he talked to us about the Torah. And I will never forget the way he introduced it to us. He spoke about how the Torah was supposed to be like a mirror. And every time we read a Parsha, and every time we read from the Torah, it was supposed to be a way of looking at ourselves. And people, when they come up to me and they talk to me about my sermon, when they say, well, nice things or not nice things, but when they say nice things, I always tell them, I said, well, I'm actually just talking to myself for thanks for listening, because it's things that I'm hearing and I'm processing that's going around in the world, and I'm just kind of processing and sharing out loud and looking at the Torah and seeing how it helps understand it. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to play today. I wanted to take a look at and understand on this festival of Revelation to see how can we understand Torah, how do we understand Jewish texts as in a sense, as a ladder to understanding and revealing things about ourselves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass out some handouts. And those of you who are, if anyone is watching online, will read it out loud so you can hear it. And there's definitely going to be an interactive component. So we're going to be talking, we're going to be sharing in a group or with the person next to you. We're going to mix and match today. And if we don't have enough, that's really exciting because there's more people that stayed than I actually anticipated. Here, can you share between two people? Look at that. I've just started and I've already worked up a sweat. Okay. So, first thing, can we get a reader to read either in the beginning in Hebrew or in English? Go for it.
The revelation within, unveiling the divine to the Shavuot. The Rabbi Yehuda ben Levi said, there are 70 faces to the Torah. It may be compared to a hammer that strikes the rock shatters, and starts fly in all directions.
Okay. So many people have heard the term Sheva Pinim La Torah. There are 70 faces of the Torah, and this is the bit that comes after it that many of us don't pay attention to. It may be compared to a hammer that strikes a rock. The rock shatters and sparks fly in all directions. What is this saying? Put that in your own words. Beautiful. So the impact of the words of Torah can go in any direction. It may not necessarily be as expected. Yep. Yep. When you engage with Torah, you realize how many different levels there are. I'm repeating it just so if there are people online, they can hear us as well. So that's also why we're using the microphone. So, yeah, there's so many different layers and so many different meanings. Oh, nice. 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 So the hammer is not gentle, it's powerful. It's true. It's interesting. When you were going to say that, I was thinking that the hammer, I always think like it has to be hard and forceful and powerful, but then sometimes it's challenge. It's not something that comes easily. It's something you have to work to get to see what's underneath it or where it goes. Maybe. Anyone else? Well, I think it's not the hammer. I think the hammer represents our engaging in it. But okay, it's an unfortunate way. Keep going with that. What's unfortunate about it?
Well, it just seems as though it's a metaphor, kind of, or, you know, it's almost like there's force on you, there's some sort of obsession involved.
Mm. Excellent. Interesting. So there's a challenge. Wait, is this supposed to be forceful? I thought, Torah's engagement is supposed to be gentle and lovely, as opposed to sometimes you have to actually argue with it. You have to deal with that force, that power, to see what's underneath it, which is really interesting. It's someone once said to me, going to a prayer service they went to, they're like, it's so boring, and it wasn't because of the music, but it's because they didn't struggle with it, and they said that part of, we're Am Yisrael, we're people who wrestle with God, we're people who engage in the struggle, and through that struggle, hopefully you come out stronger and brighter and more enlightened from that. But it's an interesting thing. But it does make me think, actually, both of you, it makes me think of two different midrashim that talk about today, that talk about Shavuot, right? The one I mentioned in shul earlier, that Mount Sinai is acts as the chuppah that is above and sanctifying the marriage and the union of God and the Jewish people, and the Torah is like the ketubah, is the marriage contract. How beautiful is that? It's all flowery, it's wonderful. The other one, of course, we know, is the Torah, is the Mount Sinai is held above the heads of the Israelites people. You accept my Torah or else, right? Not a pleasant way. I remember the first time I read that, I had the same reaction. I'm like, oh, yuck, that's terrible. I mean, isn't this supposed to be this treasured thing? Or the midrash that says God offered it to everybody else first. Like, we were God's last choice? Seriously? That's so depressing. But it's interesting to see there's 70 faces, right? There's so many different ways to understand it. Which one resonates with us? And it's not eternally. Which one resonates with us right now, this year? I mean, that's true. We might not have been God's last choice. Thank you. That makes me feel much better.
Because otherwise it's silly to keep looking.
Yeah.
I
No?
guess unless you rejected Jews,
Right. Well, it's true. I'll study that midrash with you another time, see what you say after that one. All right. Anyway, the point of this is my introductory text, right? To kind of take a look and say there's lots of different ways to interpret it, and even just right now, seeing how we all respond to it and how we see it and what focuses, what we focus on, what words we actually focus on is utterly fascinating, which of course leads to the next bit down here, which is Pardes. So Pardes is an orchard. And it's also become an acronym for the letters of the word Pardes. So the Pei, the first letter, is Pshat, which is meaning simple or literal. It's like a map or a guide to how to study texts. I personally use it as a guide to how to study people as well, and how to study situations and circumstances. That you've got your pshat, your simple, your superficial level, like what's just there. We're however many people singing in a room in various levels of clothing. That's the pshat, right? Then you've got the remez. That's the hint, right? What is the text hinting at? What is the situation hinting at? What is the fact that we're here on Shavuot. And so maybe that can hint at that you're here this late also, and you're sticking with this, tells me that you guys are probably more interested. You're probably more engaged. Maybe this is your first time, but I doubt it. And so, but maybe what is it hinting at? What's the situation hinting at? What's the text hinting at? Then you've got your drash. Your drash is your interpretation. This one says it's an insight, but it's not just what you see, it's not just what it's hinting at, but how would you interpret it, right? So how would, Rabbi Morgan was talking about, the fact that you use a hammer, right? What is that? He interprets that as, it has to be forceful and powerful in order to release this spark. You said, what kind of rock does a spark? So but what is it hinting at? And then you say, well, hold on, I think that's saying that it's something that's aggressive. I don't know how I feel. That's your interpretation. But this is powerful versus aggressive. That's an interpretation. Where's the drush, right? And that's our interpretation. It's a little bit deeper in understanding. There are, by the way, no right or wrongs in this. That's the fascinating part. No right or wrongs, which again, like my teacher said, Rabbi Kushner, it's a mirror. What we see in it potentially is what we need to see at that moment, or it's what we're wrestling with or what we're fighting at. It reveals more about us than it does actually about the text. I still have the argument with my father, who still believes that religion is the opiate of the masses. I say, don't blame the religion because of the people, because of the way the people interpret it. But anyway, that's a whole other story. So then the last version is sod. Sod is the secretive meaning. It's the mystery. It's what lies underneath that we don't know. It's what the Kabbalists and the mystics like to play with. Now, very few people actually get to that level of understanding. And even though I've potentially lured people here, or not, or you're just here because you want to be, people think, ooh, Kabbalah, that's so fun, that's so interesting, that's so esoteric. What we do is like touching the surface of it, right? In order to really understand, it's a lot of work, a lot of layers to be able to get under to that secretive meaning beyond just the interpretation. So a lot of people do gematria, which is it's using the numerical values of Hebrew and the letters, and they say that's the sod. I kind of think it's a little bit of rubbish, but fascinating nonetheless. I mean, I find it fascinating. Whether or not it's true, I have no idea. But again, for me, and this is my interpretation in my way, it's not right or wrong, it just is mine, is that whether it's true or not is actually irrelevant to me. What meaning I make or what other people make out of it and what insights they gain from that, that's what's interesting to me. Whether it's the secret meaning, maybe yes, maybe no. But it's what you're pulling out of it that reveals, that excites something in you. That's the spark. That's the spark that's flying in a different direction. That's cool and fun. So what we're going to do is we're going to unpack some of these layers, and who knows where we're going to get with it. So turn over to our first text, and can I get a reader?
And he dreamed, and behold, a ladder was set up on the earth, and its top reached to the heaven. And behold, angels of God were ascending and descending on it.
Thank you. So here we go. We've got the Jacob's ladder. We've got the idea. Jacob had a dream, and you see that the angels, goes from the earth to the sky, and we see that the angels were ascending and descending. What do we notice about that? Right? They started at the bottom and went up, right? When we think of angels, we tend to think they come from heaven and go down, Christian mythology. But, we tend to think that, the Lord of hosts. But the other idea, our Jewish word for angel, does anyone know what it is, other than Rabbi Morgan? Malach, excellent, right? Malachim. A malach, what else does the word malach mean? Melech, different word, yeah? A messenger, right? So you've got so the same word for messenger and angel, it's the same thing. So our rabbis say that on earth, wandering around, we've got messengers of God. They're here, wandering around with us. So they're here and they go up and down. So that's where some of the ideas are. But the Jewish mystics basically use the metaphor of this ladder quite a bit. Right? They look at the sphirot, they look at these spheres of understandings as a ladder that guides us from where we are to if you were, is it Buddhism that does nirvana? What's the, yeah? So, that takes us to where we need to go, that gets us to this sense of ultimate understanding, this sense of dvekut, this sense of literally adhering yourself or binding yourself to the divine, right? That you use this metaphor of the ladder. So that's where it originally comes from. Can someone read the second text? Right, so here we go at the very beginning of the Exodus story, and Effie, you're going to be reading from that for us tomorrow, so hopefully you'll have some sleep tonight. But we read this idea that Moses goes up the mountain, right? So this concept of ascension from here, and ascension is very concrete, and that revelation requires ascension. It requires knowing where you are and raising yourself up. However you get there, that's what we're going to talk about tonight, right? That's what it is. So that's grounded in Torah, and it's further expanded upon later on. So what is this ascension? We're going to see a little bit more. Can I get someone to read the third text? So this is one of my favorite midrashim, Shemot Rabbah, right? It's talking about, it again, all of the midrashim, interpretations, same thing with that third level drash, come from someone's understanding of the words in Torah. And, the Torah talks about, the Torah refers to the Aseret HaDibrot, the Ten Commandments, being given to Bnei Israel and Beit Yaakov. So what does Bnei Israel mean? Right, the sons or the children. We translate it usually as the children of Israel, but the sons of Israel, and Beit Yaakov, right, the house of Jacob, right, the house of Jacob. What do we know about the word bnei, banim? You said it's the sons, right? It's sons. It's masculine. Beit is from well, it's not from bat actually, but it is feminine, right? So bait is feminine and banim is masculine. And so Israel and Jacob, what do we know about the connection between Israel and Jacob? They're the same person, right? So Jacob's name changed to Israel after wrestling with God. And so why does the Torah change? Why say the same thing? Why does they say it's given to the children of Israel and the house of Jacob? Like clearly that's the same thing. Duh, right? So the rabbis say, well, the one is talking to the men and the other is talking to the women. Interesting interpretation. That's what some of the midrashim say. They also, there's another part which I didn't put here. It goes from plural to singular, and and then the midrash says that when God spoke the Aseret HaDibrot, the Ten Commandments, and Moses brought them down, God spoke in a way that every single person could understand and could hear. I just recently struggled with this myself recently, but I constantly will tell people that, yes, I know this is what you want to say, but if you say it that way, it's not going to be heard. So do you want to get your message across and be heard, or do you want to say it the way you want to say it? What matters more? It's really hard when you want to say it the way you want to say it. But if you want the message to be heard, you have to say it in a way that the other person can hear it. Right? It's just basic communication skills. Well, we learn that from the Torah, right? So God gives us this in a way that we want to hear it, that we need to hear it. I find when I read things over and over again, at different times, I don't get bored. I never get bored. My husband never likes to watch movies more than once. I love watching them more than once because, A, it's entertaining, but I find something new every single time, like I do, because of where my head is at, what's just happened in my life, what's happening in the world. I focus on things I've never seen before. Kal v'chomer, all the more so with the Torah. We hear and we see what we need to in our way. So wait, I don't understand. I understand the second one. The first one is saying that.
Well, you could argue that they're saying that the Torah is it's given to each and every person, but it will depend on whether that each person's individual capacity, whether they'll be able to understand it or use it.
I think it's saying that each and every person will get it, and they will hear it in a way that they can understand it. Yeah, it is. It is definitely an interesting thing. Though, again, in my first year of rabbinical school, I had a teacher who came and gave his guest lecture. I don't even remember his name. I've blocked it out. And I remember being so upset. He talked about this, and he talked about the role. I hope you don't have anyone like this. He says the role of the rabbi is to be able to interpret the Torah for the congregation, and to be able to and to be the intermediary between the congregation and God. And I looked at him, and I, chutzpahdik me, I'm like, yeah, wrong religion. Because it's not what we say. Like, we don't go to a priest to ask for absolution, right? We don't have an interpreter. We don't go, the days of the priest, that you give the sacrifice to the priest and the priest makes it on your behalf, died in 70 CE. We, as a reform movement, are not actually praying for those times to come back, right? We believe that each and every one of us communicate directly to God on our own terms, right? And if you can help me find the source, I once heard, actually more than once, but I cannot find the source. Maybe I should ask ChatGPT. But I cannot find the source that says we speak to God through prayer and God speaks to us through study. Who is it? Really? I thought it was like Middle Ages something. Amazing. Okay. Yeah, okay. All right. Well, if you can help me, I would appreciate it. Well, whoever said it doesn't matter. It's beautiful. I mean, it matters. I want to say it b'shem omro in that person's name. But I love the idea that we communicate to God through prayer, but God communicates to us through study. So when we read that, give me 1 second. And Deborah, it's like what you were saying. When we read it, the interpretations we get, the insights we get, that's God telling us, in a sense, what we need to hear. And if we can't hear it, it's a block, then we're blocked. And it's how do we shape it, and that's all of us to be able to help people find it. Sorry, Effie, and then Leonie. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, Leonie. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Strength. Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Yeah. Amazing, but beautiful. But it's not something that's just going to happen automatically. It's something that you have to work for. You have to put an effort in. Yeah. Absolutely. So again, it's all the way. It's all about perspective. It's all the way you look at it. It's all the way you look at it. You know, which is absolutely fantastic. But the one thing all of these have in common is that you can't not be engaged. You know, like it's really hard. Like this is for me one of the things, and I look at it and it says, oh, it's, you know, it speaks to everyone according to their ability. It talks about all these things, but if you're not listening, then you're not going to see it. Or if you read it, and you know, I listen to so many people read, and they're just like reading the words on the page. Like, do you even know what you just said? No, because they're just reading. They're not actually interpreting. They're not actually taking the time to process, which is why I drive some people crazy the way I lead services, because I interrupt things constantly. And other people find it they really appreciate it because I don't let people be passive. Now, yeah, I mean, different, but that being said, correct. Yeah. 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 Which is true. And look, and then there are other people who will sit and say, I don't need you to do it for me because I can do that for myself. And I do that. And they don't need someone to guide them, and they can just sit and do the reading, and they focus on something, and then they catch up a little bit later, whether it's in the Hebrew or the English, or whether it's the music that, you know, that serves as the hammer, that unlocks that, whatever it is, you know. I don't know what it is, but I do find that we often, especially if we do things regularly, we go on repeat, that we don't actually focus on what it means or allow space. Yeah. Then you go back, yeah. But but everyone has to do it in their own way. But but like you said, it takes work. You have to go up and try to do that and challenge yourself. And if you're not being challenged by it, then you reach a stage of complacency and you don't grow, right? And then you're not moving up and you're not moving forward. So says our tradition. Okay, text 4. We're almost to where we want to get to. Who wants to read that?
Torah was given in fire, light, and sound, but it must be received inwardly through the refining of the inner vessels.
All right, Rabbi Moshe. Yeah, it's beautiful. Rabbi Moshe Cordova, right? So we're building, it's about the ascension. It's about how the Torah was given in our Parsha Shavuot class. We talked about it was given in fire, water, and in the desert. Here it says fire, light, and sound. But it must be received inwardly. What does that mean, right? Like we all know that we were created, each human being was created b'tselem Elohim, right, in the image of God. Some people say it's the divine spark within us, right? So these inner vessels, you know, what are they? How do we receive this inside personally? And they talk about the sfirot of the soul. Now, sphira is a sphere, and if you turn to the next page, you will see that. And again, we don't have much time, so we're going to do a short version of this. But you know, stay tuned for a longer class on this. But the sfirot are considered. So they're different spheres. It's a Kabbalistic Jewish mystical interpretation, like a map, like a ladder. It's literally like a ladder. And we start at the bottom of the ladder, which is Malchut, which is the one, the aspect that kind of grounds us to our earthly world, if you will, and it moves its way up these different spheres of consciousness, and up to Keter, which is at the top, which is the crown, which is connection with the divine spirit, and so there's different ways. I'm not going to go into all these letters in between. There's all these different kind of combinations of things. You will find if you do Google images and look at Sfirot, you will see it mapped on the body. So you have it to the right arm, the left arm, your groin, your head, your heart, your gut. So they have so many different ways, again, so many layers to understand the Sfirot. But the Sfirot are basically like a map. And for our purposes today, we're looking at it as a ladder of insight that takes us to our own inner revelation, which is ours alone, right? We have the same spark, we have the same Torah, we have the same event, so that's what connects us, but how we ascend to that and what that ascension looks like and what it reveals to us is going to be different to us every year, and different to each person. So okay, so Malchut